Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Natalie Sayre, and I will be the moderator for this evening's debate. Before we begin, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate, as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform and public education measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. The system provides clean funding for qualified participating candidates who agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules. These include contribution and spending limits, foregoing special interest money, and participating in commission debates. We encourage audience questions, so please utilize the note card given to you when you enter the room and hold it up. Our volunteers will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. If you need additional cards, just raise your hand. If you have a question for a specific candidate, please include the candidate's name on the note card. It will be considered in the second half of the debate. We screen questions for clarity to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for up to 90 minutes, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our best. Tonight's debate includes 1-minute opening statements. The first half of the debate begins with 2 minutes to each candidate to answer the same question. After all candidates have responded to the question, the first responding candidate will be given an additional 30 seconds. We will rotate which candidate responds first. The second half will allow a different question per candidate with 1 minute to answer. Remember, those can be directed. And 1-minute closing statements. We ask that you remain polite to all candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with what's being said. Tonight's participants are Mr. Brent Backus, a Republican candidate for the State Senate in District 13. Mr. Timothy Dunn, Republican candidate for State Representative in District 13. Mr. Darren Mitchell, Republican candidate for State Representative, District 13. Ms. Joanna Osborne, Republican candidate for State Representative in District 13. And Mr. Trey Terry, Republican candidate for State Representative in District 13. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order according to last name, starting with the Senate for opening comments, and will progress from that starting point. The order for the second half will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name, starting with the House. Mr. Backus, would you start your opening remarks, please?
Thank you. I'm Brent Backus, and I actually live in Waddell, Arizona. First of all, I'd like to thank God to give me the fortitude to run for office, my wife, the voters of LD 13, and those that shown up at this meeting this evening, and of course, the Clean Election Commission for sponsoring this event. LD 13 is without an elected state senator. We need a fighter. I'm fighting such that, as this candidate, I went after Don Shooter. We need a fighter to fight for the voters of LD 13. I'm married, I have 38 years experience in the public and private sector. I do some lobbying or educational work for the 10th Amendment Center here in Arizona. I'm a Reagan conservative. My affiliations are with the Arizona Republican Assembly, the 10th Amendment Center, the National Rifle Association, the Arizona Citizens Defense League, Judicial Watch, and the Heritage Foundation. I got a good team backing me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn.
Good evening. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the Clean Election Commission for putting this on. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Tim Dunn, current state representative from Yuma, Arizona. I'm a third-generation farmer. I was born and raised on a Christian conservative family in Yuma. We have a grain company. We have our farming operation. We have 4 Sport Clips haircuts. 2 are in Yuma, and one's in Buckeye, and one's in Goodyear. I've got my oldest son is back working on the farm and the grain company with me. We pulled my dad out of retirement to help me so I could step in and work this session. My youngest son Luke Air Force, or he's at Lackland Air Force Base in basic training right now, so we're really proud of him. So I appreciate the chance of being able to talk to you guys today and talk about issues that affecting Legislative District 13.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell.
Good evening. I'm Representative Mitchell. I'm your current legislator. I'm in the end of my third term. And 6 years ago, when I first came here and talked about running for election, I asked for your votes and told you that I would stop any additional regulation on businesses, that I would hold off on tax increases at any cost, that I would help increase funding for K-12 education and support expanded choice for parents and school choice. I've done all those things, and I think because of that, I've accumulated a record which kind of speaks for itself, and you've sent me back twice. I asked for your support one more time to go back to my last term and to do some more good work on tax reform. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here this evening. I appreciate your engagement and being part of the process. Thank you for this opportunity to talk. My name is Joanne Osborne, and I'm a fourth-generation Arizona native. I've been married to my husband, Ken, for the last 31 years, and we've been in business together for 27 years. We own Osborne Jewelers. We started when we were 25 years old with a 10-day-old baby and a 2-year-old, and nobody really thought we'd make it, but here we are today, and we worked hard. I've been on the Goodyear City Council for the last 11 years, and I've worn multiple hats. I've been on many boards and commissions, all the way from children to the hospital board currently, to water boards, to the chamber board, to human services and homelessness. I run the gamut of experience and knowledge, and I'm hoping that I can have your support, and we'll be here to work for our state. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Terry.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Whoa, that was kind of loud. My name is Trey Terry. I'm a U.S. Army combat vet. I'm a conservative. I'm 100% pro-life. I believe in limited government and free enterprise. I am running because I believe our state is at a crossroads. I believe there's an effort from Democrats and some Republicans to try the same old tax and spend approach that put us in a $3.5 billion hole less than a decade ago. We need fighters in our district. I'm thankful for my wife to be here. My wife Elise is here. She's a couple weeks away from giving birth to our first son. So thankful to her for being here and supporting me through this.
Thank you. At this point in time, we will start the portion where each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer the same question, and remember, the first responder will get an additional 30 seconds. Mr. Dunn, we will start with you. If you were to be elected, what will be your priorities, and what would be the first piece of legislation you'd like to submit?
One of the biggest things that's affecting our state right now is water. We're in the year 18th of a drought, and while it might not affect you in your home here, you might not think it affects you. When I was doing a dam tour a couple weeks ago, in 2000, the water was about to go over the spillway, and we're getting ready to have some mandatory shortages. So be looking at what we need to do for shared solutions all across the state to make sure that we can have water for the future. That's the biggest thing affecting our state. And so we'll be working with some of those, possibly doing some legislation with that. We're doing some tours right now with legislative hearings all around the state, so we're actively engaged in that currently as we speak. One of the biggest things that I think that's going to hit is also school safety. I think that's important too. We didn't get anything passed this last year. I think we're going to have to address that situation. I've had a meeting with our sheriff and our police department and some superintendents talking about what school safety means to them, and so I'm looking forward to working on something like that as far as mental health and what we need to do as far as school safety. And it's in my mind, it's not gun control. As a avid Second Amendment, I love to hunt. We love guns. We love to use our guns in a safe manner. And so immediately the left goes to, we need to talk about gun control when we're talking about school safety. But when you sit down with the people in the room, they're worried about what they get to do when they have a problem child that has an issue, and they want to make sure that issue is addressed, and they don't have those resources for those kids that are not able to go into a facility to get checked out. And so we need to work on those kind of issues if we're going to address school safety. and get SROs, schools resource officers in the schools. So that was one of the things that kind of affects us all, and we didn't get it passed this last year, and I think I'll be working on that as well.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, same question.
I guess the short answer is tax reform. So in the past, I've served as chairman of Ways and Means, where we research tax reform. In my many discussions with the governor, if he's reelected, that will be his #1 priority, will be to overhaul the state tax system. Conformity will be the first issue. So the Trump tax cuts have gone into effect, but they haven't fully gone into effect at the state level because we didn't conform to those tax reforms. And so next session we'll need to conform so that those tax savings will pass through to the earners, so that you'll actually realize those tax savings. Secondly, criminal justice reform. It's something that we can do to save money, and it's one of those issues that we're working on. I'm actually engaged in 2 races right now, my race for re-election and my race for speaker. I'm also running to be Speaker of the House. If I'm successful in that race, one of the things that I'm very excited about doing is instituting a new committee that is a government oversight committee that we do not have at the Capitol right now. And that government oversight committee, which will have full subpoena power, which will be looking into budgets of state agencies and school district budgets so that we can ferret out waste and misuse. We've been funding the schools a lot now, as you know, but we want to make sure that those dollars aren't wasted. So that's something I'm excited about.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne.
Thank you very much. I hear some items that we all agree on, and I would have to say first and foremost is going to be education. And I was very happy with the governor's 20 by 2020 plan, and I felt that was something that we could all get behind. I want to make sure that it's going to be sustainable. We all know that we need to have ongoing funds to pay for those ongoing expenditures. You hate to call education an expenditure, but it is, and it's got to be funded correctly. And I believe that Mr. Mitchell's right. We need to look at tax reform. I'm not looking at tax increases, but I think we need to make sure that everything that's in there currently in our tax codes, in our tax credits and debits all make sense, because I don't know when the last time it was that they looked at it. And so that's something that we need to begin to address. Water is definitely the next item. Education truly takes the air out of the room, but you know what? If we don't have water and we don't deal with that situation, you know what? Jobs are gone, our economy's gone. We have to address that first. And so, like I said, the last 2 years, I've been on the Arizona Municipal Water Users Association, and I've been watching as we've been getting to this kind of Lake Mead cliff. And it's something that needs to be addressed, and that will be with the drought contingency plan. You know, this district is an interesting district because it goes from Goodyear all the way to Wickenburg and all the way to Yuma. And you remember that in Yuma, it's our agriculture epicenter of the state. Water is going to be critical. The other thing, though, is also just our economy and healthcare. And I've been on the hospital board for the last 5 years, and we want to make sure that healthcare is accessible to everyone. And there's going to be some changes in laws that we're going to have to deal with in the next couple years, and that's going to be the solvency of Medicaid and Medicare. And those are things that the planning needs to start now, because we don't want to hit that cliff and have a lot of people going, I have no insurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Terry.
Well, my first priority is making sure that the budget is balanced. That is job number one. We cannot have a runaway spending problem like we did several years ago. That includes, as Mr. Mitchell said, tax reform. What our legislators won't tell us right now is that because there weren't enough Republicans in the legislature supporting tax reform this year, you're actually being hit with a slight tax hike here in Arizona. So that is something that we need to address immediately. I'm also looking forward to improving education that comes without raising taxes. We were able to give 20% raise over 3 years without raising taxes. There's no need to raise taxes right now. So improving education, we can do it the same way you improve other sectors of the economy. It's with competition. More competition means higher quality and lower costs. That is what I want to see with the education system. We have some of the best charter schools, routinely ranked some of the top schools in the entire country here in Arizona. We need to expand on that. Education is about the outcome. It's not about just the specific buildings. The education is the students. The money needs to follow the students. So that is a priority. Also, defending our constitutional rights. We've seen attempts here to take a hit at the Second Amendment. I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I strongly support our gun rights. The bill that was in the legislature for school safety, big problem with that was that it took away our rights without due process. If somebody said you were mentally ill, your rights were taken away. That's unacceptable. Due process needs to happen before anything else.
Thank you. Mr. Bacchus.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a little history of my past work with the legislature, with the Arizona 10th Amendment Center, because that's going to give you what I'm going to do for you in the future. We worked with the legislature and interest groups to revise the Arizona civil asset forfeiture laws. We also worked with the legislature to protect your Second Amendment rights, to ban warrantless stingray operations, to eliminate state capital gain taxes on gold and silver species, encouraging its use as currency, and recently to have industrial hemp grown here in Arizona. Now, I do want to thank Representative Mitchell, because with the 10th Amendment Center, his door is always open for us. And I want to thank you publicly, Representative Mitchell, for listening to these and working with us on these causes. Thank you. Some of the issues, when I was getting my petition signed, I listened to the voters of LD 13. Here are some of their concerns. Someone needs to review the operations of the Arizona Department of Child Services. Some of the voters, hey, how about ballots in English only? Expand school choice options, protect our civil liberties, and keep taxes low. I knocked over 1,090 doors to get signatures on my petitions. That are the top 5. I'm working on now, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm working with groups to look at future legislation to amend, if needed, the Arizona Civil Asset Forfeiture Law, to prohibit the state from using personnel or resources to enforce any new federal gun control laws. Michigan just adopted a law, which I think we need here in Arizona. It's to prohibit the state and political subdivisions from assessing, participating with, or providing material support or resources to a federal agencies to enable it to collect or to facilitate in the collection or use of a person's electronic data unless one of 5 conditions apply. That was approved by the governor of Michigan this month, and we need to do it here in Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Dunn, your 30 seconds to respond.
We covered everything. Everything's fixed now. I think that as you look at the makeup of the legislature, it is one of the most important things is that we elect a conservative and keep the control of the House and the Senate. So I think as an electorate, we need to make sure that we control so we can keep conservative values done. And also, the few times that I've been, the short time that I've been there, I've learned that legislators want to make a lot of laws, and I think we need to make sure that we don't impact businesses and don't impact you. We need to make sure we're just doing what's right for the citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, we will start with you for the next question, and it's a hybrid of 2 audience questions. So, how do you envision yourself working with the localities in your district to serve your shared constituency, and what can that constituency expect, independent of their party, with you regarding engagement? Email replies, meetings, like how will you engage with the individual level as well? So, repeat it. How do you envision yourself working with the localities and individual constituencies? What can they expect with your communication and connection with them?
Sure. So I have 6 years of a history with this, and I probably have, as a conservative, a little bit of a difficult relationship with my cities and towns, and I see Mayor Lord back there. And that's because I stick up for my constituents when they feel the cities are running over them. So that creates a little bit of a tension between the state government and local governments. We often hear local control, but what maybe the citizen doesn't realize is local control is often used as another way of saying larger government or expansion of government. And so for me, I'll always push back on that. And it doesn't mean you have to have a bad relationship, but we do have a adversarial relationship oftentimes. For example, I ran the Airbnb bill, which allows property rights for homeowners. You can rent your home on a short-term rental without the harassment from local city jurisdictions, which is what they were getting. Just last month, I filed a brief with the AG's office because Sedona was not abiding by our law. And what happens is if the AG's opinion supported my opinion, and Sedona now has to abide by the law that we passed, which means they can't charge they can't charge short-term rentals extra fees, or they lose their shared revenue. And so they've changed their law. As far as constituents, what I like to normally do, and I think I have a lot of friends over from Pebble Creek here tonight, I often will shoot out a one-sentence reply. That's what I do. I don't like having my assistant do it. I don't like form letters. But when I get messages, I usually like to respond with just basically it's one sentence or two, letting them know. But most of them have my cell phone, and that's kind of how I interact.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne.
Thank you. Well, you know, I think the beauty of coming from the city, being a council member, is that I have been part of that local community type of person. And I hope that I'm going to be the different person at the state legislature, because I believe that the city and the state need to be partners. We're in this together. I'm a cheerleader type of person. I want to see collaborations and partnerships. And so I go with that kind of mindset, that I'm not looking to try to strong arm anybody, that I want to make it the difference for our state, and that we can work together, because there's a lot of corporations out there in other states that we want to bring here to Arizona. And so that's going to take us all together to help do that. I think the other thing too is I'm a planner, and I've already mapped out what my thoughts would be of a plan if I was elected by you all, and that is I'm going to go be part of regular outreach. Not only have I already been part of our citizenry, because I see people in the grocery store, and I see people in my business, and I see people, you know, just in all the committees and clubs that I'm in, but I also will be part of Westmark, and I'll be part of this district, going to the chamber meetings, going to the council meetings, going to be part of talking with everybody and finding what's affecting you, going to the military bases. We have 3 military bases. We have a lot of great stuff in the West Valley, and it's regionalism that makes us the best. And I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's the West Valley's turn, and I'm excited about it, and it's going to take that kind of mentality of partnership and collaboration. And that's where we're going to have some success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Terry.
Yeah, as far as relationship with cities, towns, other elected officials, I'm willing to work with anybody who wants to work with me to get the government off your back. If the local government is looking to raise your taxes, as they have done in Goodyear several times, as they have raised your water rates several times, count me out. I will oppose them. But if they want to work together to ensure that taxes are lower and that the burdensome regulations aren't affecting our businesses, I'm willing to work with them. So as far as community outreach, I plan on having at least monthly town halls, especially while we're in session. I believe I should be accessible. Everywhere I go, I hand out my business card, which has my personal email address and my cell phone number on it. I believe the best way for me to represent you is for you to be able to get a hold of me. Yell at me if you want to. It won't hurt my feelings. I was in the Army for a while. I've been yelled at and called many names. So if you would just be one more. But my job is to listen, to represent you, but at the same time, my job is to let you know who I am. So that's where I am on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, collaboration and partnerships are key when you're in the legislature, communication with your constituents, whether it's the cities, the individual voter, towns, and what I would like to do, we have electronic ways of being in touch, but you know what? You have to get out there and knock on the doors to the average voter. And I would like to do that. I mean, it's great to hear the cities and everyone else, but the average citizen at times is not being heard. I've knocked on a lot of doors. Matter of fact, I'm going on doors tomorrow to knock. My top 5 is probably going to be a top 10 by the end of the week. I prefer one-on-one with the constituents. When I'm in the Senate, the first person that comes into the office is the constituent, not the lobbyist. Lobbyist comes in, the constituent comes in, this constituent's going to get the first seat before the lobbyist. So I think collaboration and partnerships, just like the panel said here, is very important with outreach. We need to hear what the voters have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn.
Thank you. Well, I'm a doer, not a talker, and I've found that a lot of politicians do a lot of talking, and they like to hear themselves speak, and to that point, and to that point, and you keep interrupting each other. So, not Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell's pretty good, but the people like to hear themselves think. And I think one of the first things I did when I was down at the legislature in February was I reached out to our cities and towns. We had all of our cities and towns came in over the next week. We met with almost every mayor, so we can get to understand where they were at, what their issues were in their cities and towns. And then we started talking to all the superintendents to work with the superintendents of the schools. What is your issue, especially on Prop 301, because that was the major concern of the day. So I think you reach out and you need to be accessible. And then you have to make sure that you're talking to the constituents. Since I didn't have the chance to meeting people up front, I knew a lot of people from Yuma. I was able to talk to everybody from Yuma, but I would turn around and we would return emails and phone calls to any constituent that came into the office. We had over 100 teachers and counselors that came in during the Red for Ed, but we made sure that we talked about what the constituents were and what was good for getting those pay raises, and we made sure that we addressed their concerns. But I think when you look at the constituent base and you are accessible, you show up to things, and you're able to return phone calls, then they know that you're representing them. So that's what I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Mitchell, your 30 seconds additional.
Sure, I just want to clarify a point. So, of course, we want to talk to everybody and be open. My office is open to everybody, and I have a reputation of talking and meeting with people. When Red for Ed was on our campus, thousands of them in our courtyard, I walked out and spent hours talking to them. And I think the interaction that we had was quite good. At first, they were hostile until they actually got to know you as a person, and then they were fine. But one of the things that as far as the kumbaya moment with the city and state government, it's two different entities. I have always pushed back on with all due respect to anyone on the panel this may affect, with
Thank you.
stop sign. To be continued.
Ms. Osborne, we're going to start with you. What is your plan to keep schools safe without restricting Second Amendment rights?
Thank you for that. You know, that's actually something that I know the governor was trying to pass this past session, and unfortunately it didn't get through. But, you know, back to being a person of action, I'm very proud of the fact that our city for years has been trying to keep their students safe in schools. You know, it's partnerships again. We have school resource officers, safety officers. We have one in each of our high schools. And we have the national model that has made the news, where we have had officers go into elementary schools where they have opened up an office just for an officer that needs to come in and do paperwork. So we have little substations all over in elementary schools. And that way they can come in, they can see kids, they can be part of what's going on in those schools, and there's a relationship there. And that has been a national model. This past year, though, every year I bring our school districts, every principal, every district superintendent together, and we collaborate and we talk about what's going on in education. And this year, school safety was the #1 issue. So not only did I bring the SRO from Goodyear, but the SRO from Buckeye and the SRO from Avondale, and I invited the council members from those cities, because our school districts flank other cities. And so it's like we all came together to discuss how can we keep our kids safe. That is a good answer with our officers. And our high school district has even put money towards the city to have those officers within their district. So it's a partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Terry, same question.
Yes, school resource officers are great. More of them would be nice. At the same time, a lot of it comes down to mental health. I know that's something that the governor's bill addressed. I mentioned it previous. However, there was an issue in there that caused the downfall of that bill. You couldn't get a block of Republicans opposed it because it took away the constitutional right to own a firearm without due process. That needs to be changed. If we can change that, we can work with the governor, we can get this done. But at the same time, we're never going to make our schools and our communities 100% safe. We need, the family, just parenting skill, parenting at home. Know what your kids are up to. Parents know their kids best. Is your kid a threat? If he is, say something. If your friend is a threat, say something. It requires more of, personal responsibility and community involvement. But at the same time, as far as working with securing our schools, I would also be open to the idea, if you have some military veterans or concealed carry folks that work in the school, I don't see why they should be prohibited from keeping, if you had a security personnel there, to have someone else that would be there to defend our children. I'm the only one up here that will have children going through our school system here in the future. I'm incredibly invested in this. So I am, my concern on this level is great, but I don't think there is a one solution fits all government solution.
Thank you, Mr. Backus.
Thank you. Don't forget, this is a two-way street. It also starts at home with the parents, as well as bringing church back into the family, okay? I would support hiring retired law enforcement officers as school resource officers. I would also support mental health opportunities for those that need it at the state and local level. But I'm going back to, it starts with the parents. I don't even object to even having teachers carrying concealed weapons on campus, because I'm a Second Amendment person. And are those teachers that are ex-military, are concealed carry permit holders, they should have the authority to be on school with their guns to protect the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Well, it is very important that we have our schools safe and that the students can go to school and not feel like they're going to have a problem. When they had 5,000 students come down to the Capitol the month after the Parkland shooting, met with 5 students from Millennial High School, and they were almost coming to tears because they were kind of afraid. It was kind of ramped up because there wasn't a political agenda behind that movement. But when you get down into the weeds and you start talking about what they're actually doing, what they're concerned with, they really wanted counselors. They really wanted, this school actually has school resource officers, but they wanted more counselors and more people to talk to them, and because they knew they have constituent students that have problems and issues. And so when I met with the superintendents and the police the other day, they were talking about there's no facilities once you check the students out. There's no place for them to go. We don't have a system set up to detain those children with mental health issues. So we really have to address that as a system. So it's very important that we work on that because they know who they are. They know who needs help, and so we need to work on that. One of the biggest things about, there's a varying difference between Wickenburg and Waddell and Welton and Goodyear. There's a lot of resources some of the schools have. Some of the small rural schools, they can't even afford a school resource officer. They have to have a plan. So I think when you do training and you're working with what's going on in each individual area, with the school, with the sheriff's department and the police departments, in those areas you let those have local control, but you need to make sure we have school resource officers in as many schools as we can. And one of the things that the police really was they were open for debate, but they really did not like someone else carrying, because if they had someone walking around with a gun in the school, they're not sure who's the perpetrator and who's the one that's the parent or the teacher that's carrying. So they really shied away from that as a police enforcement officers. So that'll be up for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah, in the last session when the governor brought this up, we killed it. It was a bad idea. His plan was a bad plan. You can talk around it as much as you want. It's still a bad plan. By 2020, the K-12 increased funding. When we were negotiating that, part of the negotiation was the governor's school safety plan, as they called it, was dead. We wouldn't do it. The reason was it takes people's civil liberties away from them, and until you can figure out how to do that, that plan's not going to work. But what you can do is you can make those, if schools are becoming targets, then we can make those targets safer places. It is a mental health issue, and there's all kinds of things that we can already do with people with mental health, but what the schools need to do is be able to fortify, quite frankly, the entrance to those schools and keep people out. And so that's the simple way to do it. It doesn't take too much more discussion. It just takes funding to do it and the will to do it. And all new schools should be designed in that manner to limit the number of entry points. I look forward to doing that. I'm certainly willing to work on that next session. But all the other things that the governor was talking about, which some of them, it's not a gun issue. It's not an issue of, well, how are we going to put little Johnny away if he makes a threat? Those already exist. It's an issue of when somebody who is crazy can get a gun illegally already and wants to go to a school, how can we keep them out of that school to keep our children safe? That's all it is. And we can fix that problem to a great extent just by funding it. It's something that I'll work with if you send me back to the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne, your 30-second response.
Thank you. So for all these years that I've been on the hospital board, the mental health concern, the opioid issue has been prevalent in our discussions. And we annually go over the stats and try to, look at what's going on. But we also have looked at how can we as a community look after each other. And one of the things that our own fire department had started was a community paramedicine.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Terry, we will start with you. Recently, the pay raises were pushed through or sent through for teachers. How would you hold districts accountable to transparent and reasonable spending of tax dollars?
Mr. Mitchell mentioned something earlier about a government accountability board. We need that. School districts need to be audited. We need to know it's our money. Where is it going? We should be able to see that on a website. So that's one of the things. I was a supporter of the 20 by 2020 plan. I believe, teachers were not, the teacher salaries obviously were not competitive enough if we were losing so many teachers. So the best way to make our state and our state salaries competitive is by raising them. And we were able to do that without raising taxes. And that's the most important thing. If there's a effort by Democrats right now to, for a lot of people in this room to double your state income tax, that's unacceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Backus.
School districts have to be accountable how they spend their money. It's a local issue. The local people have to get involved with the school districts. Get involved, go to your school districts, see how they're spending the money. The school districts had enough money to pay the teachers. How are they allocating that money? I'm all for auditing the school districts and see how they're spending that money. Do they need all those new buildings and other facilities and fancy football stadiums? That money should go to the students. It should go to the teachers. We have to look at that. It's at the school district level, and I tell you what, if you don't like your school district people on the board, vote them out and get some good conservatives on the board, and then you'll watch your money being spent wisely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Well, I think we took the first step by having the website, having the salaries and stuff being put on the website, and so that all of a sudden made them accountable like they weren't in the past. And so I think school boards were kind of surprised, but I think they were relieved at the same time. So in talking to different school board members, they're able to go ahead and vote for the raises and look at where the money's going, and they've had constant conversations because they've been in the news and they've been under the microscope. So I think we've been able to push some of that down to them, but I think we need to keep holding them accountable. We need to make sure we're holding the school board, facilities board accountable, and those things. One of the things that was passed in the budget this last year was it was an amendment that was put in there for the minimum, the lowest bid for school construction as an attempt to try to get school facilities to be cheaper. So these are some of the ways we've started to work on that. But I think you just need to make sure you communicate to our constituents when they ask questions to make sure they're working with the school boards and elect school boards and attend meetings, listen to what's going on, and be involved with your community. That's the best place. Start there, just be proactive and just show up to meetings and listen. When you have that communication, you're going to learn more.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Sure. Education funding is half of our general fund, so it's half of the state budget. It's a huge portion of it. There's so many things that we can do. We've only just begun with this year's reforms, which are a major step. It was a historic step on how we financed the increase in funding this year for K-12. But one of the things that I would like to do, because we have required as part of this budget a website where school districts will post their budgets, but it's very much just like we statutorily require cities to post those budgets too. And I don't know how many of you folks have ever gone to your city budget online and you can't find anything of meaning. It's very general and broad. Everything is kind of hidden in there. Unless you really know what you're looking for, you're not going to find anything. The school budgets are the same way, which is one of the primary reasons I'm proposing my government oversight committee, so that we can draw these we can pull in the school districts before our standing committees, which have subpoena power, which can investigate where every penny's being spent. If there's any waste, any abuse, we'll be able to look at it and try to ferret it out. It's a huge thing that's starting to catch on in some other states. I think it would be one area where we're always short on money. We always have a lot of ideas on things that we should be doing. We're always short on money, but one of the things we should be doing, because we have oversight responsibilities, is finding where our waste is, because obviously there's going to be waste in government. If we can find that, ferret it out, and spend it, or give it back to you, those are the things that we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne.
Would you mind repeating it? I want to make sure I heard your question correctly.
Certainly. With the pay raises that were recently sent through for teachers, how would you hold districts accountable to transparent and reasonable spending of tax dollars?
Okay, thank you. So, first of all, I have to tell you, I have 3 daughters that are teachers. And a year ago, one of them, my daughter-in-law's, was a teacher in Flagstaff. And she and my oldest boy, who's a wildland fireman, moved to Winnemucca, Nevada, the northern area of Nevada. This little tiny town is paying her $11,000 more a year than Flagstaff. And that was an eye-opener. And that was disgusting. And we've been hearing about this for years. This did not happen overnight. So that was really an aha moment. But now my other 2 daughters that will be starting teaching this year, one's moving back home from Wyoming. The other one just graduated from U of A, and she's going to be a charter school teacher, both high school teachers. And I'm watching how all of these dynamics are changing, and how, you're welcome, I'm bringing your teachers back, how they're coming here. And I'm excited. But when it comes to accountability, transparency is huge. It absolutely is huge. But the other thing that I want to know, because where our money is being spent, what is it that we really want out of this? Yes, we want teachers to have the tools. We want them to be respected. We want them to stay in their career that they've chosen. But the other thing is darn it, we want our children to learn. We want them to read at their grade school level. I do not want to see children coming out of high school and having to go into college and take remedial reading and math classes. This is ridiculous. And this is what is economic development to our state, is education. These companies want to know, where is my workforce coming from? Where are my well-trained, educated people? What is this that I'm hearing about Arizona? So, accountability, transparency, but rightfully paying what we need to pay for. And you're right, it does go down to the districts. It does. And so we do need to be watching that.
Thank you. Mr. Terry, your 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, it's 2018. The entire budget should be online. Not just teacher salaries. The entire budget should be online. That's not some unfunded mandate that, that takes what, they already have the budget on paper. Just have somebody put it online.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Backus, we will start with you. What will you do to decrease partisanship and increase partnership across the aisle?
Here's the first thing that the across the aisle people have to learn. It's the U.S. Constitution. If you believe in the U.S. Constitution and you're across the aisle, I'll work with you. I'm telling you a little story. I gave some testimony at the Senate hearing a couple years ago for the 10th Amendment Center. It's my understanding that the next part of the process, it goes to the Rules Committee. I'm a pretty sharp guy sometimes, and I'm like, I know what the vote's going to be. The purpose of the Rules Committee in the Senate is to make sure the bill is constitutional. This bill went to the Rules Committee. Republicans voted for it, the Democrats didn't vote for it. Come on, guys. I'm willing to work with you across the aisle. You were sworn to uphold this. I actually told the committee members in a hearing 2 years ago, I'm not sure which constitution the Democrats uphold their faith to. Obviously, at times, it's not this. And you know what? I'm telling you what, if you're a Democrat, you're a socialist, if you believe in this, I'll work with you. If you're not, walk away. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to remind the audience that we're going to be shortly going to the second half of the debate where you can direct questions to the candidates. So we are still collecting questions. Mr. Dunn, your answer. What will you do to decrease partisanship and increase partnership across the aisle?
Well, I think if you have a willingness to serve and you're working on issues and ideas, you just have to communicate. I think there are some very partisan issues, and there's some issues that I've learned the last 100 days that they just take them. The Democrats take them to a very partisan angle, and so we're talking about one issue, and all of a sudden it's always about guns. And so it's like, let's talk about the issue that we're working about. So I think we need to work on issues that affect the day, and if we can extend our hand out and say, let's sit down and try to find out what we're trying to get to. As long as it doesn't violate your conservative beliefs, what are you trying to get to? Where are we trying to go? What does the state need? What does our constituency need? And let's talk about those issues. We can not be partisan about it. But some things are right and left. But the thing, as long as we don't try to polarize it and we try to communicate and we say this is the issue and this is what's good for the state of Arizona, this is what's good for LD 13, and make sure that we're not violating any of our principles that we're elected to protect, I think that's how you work on it.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell.
Sure, I have many Democrat friends in the House. Surprisingly, this session, I was placed on the floor over with the Democrats as kind of a punishment, and you know what? I made friends, so we've become very friendly. But I have to say, you have to have a willing partner on that for bipartisanship. One of the things we heard all year long from the Democrats, on any time we had a spending bill that we were negotiating, it didn't matter what it was roads or it was some kind of service, they would always stand up on the floor and argue about, we don't want this because that money should go towards education funding. And then at the end of session, we offer a historic funding increase, and every single Democrat voted against it. So, and I stood on the floor and asked, where's the bipartisanship? How can you tell me this isn't a partisan issue when that board on the wall shows that every Democrat is voting against the most historic increase in K-12 funding that we've ever done, and every single one of you who has been complaining about it all session long refused to vote for it? So you have to have a willing partner. And I think there are some issues, and one of the issues that we've been able to bridge the partisan gap on is water and some ag issues we've been able to really work together on. Yuma, that portion of our district is divided into two districts, LD4 and LD13. LD4 is Democrat, LD13 is Republican, and we generally agree on water issues and ag issues. I'm vice chairman of water and ag, and almost every one of those issues will find bipartisanship. So we can do it, but on the hot issues of the day, like education or guns or something like that, it's almost impossible to bridge, unfortunately.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne?
Thank you. So, being on a city council, there is no party politics. You're looking for solutions for your city, for your people. You know, you're collaborating. It doesn't come into play. I'm a principled person, and I'm a strong Republican. You know, how many retailers do you find that still is closed every Sunday and closes Good Friday through Sunday for Easter? I mean, that's the person I am. That's the business that we have. But I know that at the state level, at other levels, it does come into party politics. But I'm a person that looks for where can we find common ground on. And I'll tell you a story. A few years ago, I was actually accepted to Harvard for the state and local government program. I decided that was something that I wanted to do to learn as much as I could about how I can be helpful to our cities and to our state. And I paid for it myself. It was $12,000, and I went there. And there were 75 people in that class, and they told us, each one of you were picked for a reason. And I looked around and I saw extreme left, extreme right, everything in between, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get to know every single person here, and I'm gonna find what it is that we have common ground on, and I did. And I even had a Democrat, it took me hours, but I had a Democrat say to me, I can't believe that I'm gonna say this, but I actually like a Republican. And that Democrat actually was when Trump was elected, he was elected to Congress, and he was a Democrat that went to the inauguration. And I thought, you know what, that was some leadership. So it can happen. And water is certainly one that as a state, we cannot have party politics come into play. There are many things like that that shouldn't. We need to make differences and move our future forward in successful ways. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Terry.
Bipartisanship is a two-way street. We can give and give and give. Often you hear bipartisanship, the media tells you Republicans need to cave. That's not who I am. If you, as I said previously, if you are someone who wants to limit the size of government and reduce regulations on our businesses to provide us an economic climate that is right now the envy of the country, sign me up. Like everyone up here, I have some very good personal friends who are elected Democrats. We get along great. But, you start working with them and talking with them, as Representative Mitchell said, the 20 by 20 plan, 20% increase for teachers, record levels of increase in education funding. Almost every single Democrat voted no. And just simply ask yourself, why? If bipartisanship is the goal, you would think they would work with us on that. Just the year prior, they were asking for a 4% raise. We just gave a 20% raise, and they would not work with us.
Thank you. Mr. Bacchus, your 30 seconds.
There are common themes that you can work with the other party across the aisle. But if this was a Democratic panel, they'd probably say this thing about the Republicans. But I don't think that's true. Again, I'm going to go back to the Constitution. I'll work with anyone if you believe in this book that I have in my hand. I'll work with any Democrat. You know what? I'd be willing to tell the Democrat, I'll pay your course for Hillsdale College on the U.S. Constitution. Maybe we'll bring you around, and maybe they'll want to come over to the Republican Party. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will transition to the second part of the debate where each candidate will receive a separate question with 1 minute to respond. I again remind the audience here that you may still submit questions via note cards and direct them to specific candidates. Please refrain from attacks. The first question is for Mr. Terry. How will you represent all constituents, even those whose values differ from yours if you were elected?
Yeah, our district is very vast. My values are simple Republican values. We have a strong Republican district. My goal, as I mentioned earlier, is to represent all of you. The best way is to have your input. If you leave here without my cell phone number, please see me. I will give it to you. I've been all over the district. Earlier today, I was in Wickenburg. In a couple days, I'm down in Yuma. I'm in Buckeye quite a bit. I live in Litchfield Park. My wife and I live there. My parents still live in this district. So this where I grew up. I've known the people in this district for as long as I've been able to develop a rational thought, which some people may not say has been that long, but as long as I've been around, I've known this district. My best way to represent you is to listen to you, to defend you, whether you're your water rights in Yuma or your gun rights in Wickenburg or your property rights in Litchfield Park. I will defend you.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne, what is your position on state subsidies for private businesses?
Well, I don't think we want to be picking winners and losers, so I'm not exactly sure private businesses and state subsidies would be. However, when you think about items that we can collaborate with and that I've seen at the city level. That was where we had win-win types of investment. Typically, it was in infrastructure. So that may seem like that was helping a specific company, but really what it was doing, it was lying infrastructure down into the ground to help start development for all corporations, to bring in jobs. So those are types of things that do make sense, where we work together and we bring in jobs, we bring in companies, and it takes infrastructure. Look at the 303 and what's occurred. In the next 4 years, the amount of jobs that are coming along that corridor, thank you.
Thank you.
Is from investment.
Mr. Mitchell, audience question, you mentioned teacher raises and promises depend on, in a large part, on expected revenue from growth. So what is your position on educational raises if growth falls short of expectations?
Well, part of it was from economic growth, and I think that we had to determine whether or not the economic expansion was sustainable and permanent, and we believe it was. But we did piece together, we do a 3-year budget, and so this year we pieced together what would work for this year, and next year we pieced together that as well. And then the third year, in 2021, it gets a little dicey, and that's the truth. And so we have to look this year, in the next coming session, at how that's going to be, and we'll have to look at our returns in each quarter, what it does look like. We are now ticking along at over 6% economic growth in Arizona. It's phenomenal. We're the top in the country, and it should sustain itself for some time, and but everything is subject to change. And so, as we know, 10 years ago when we went through the big recession, we had to make adjustments. And so I can't predict the future, but
Thank you.
those were permanent.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn, from a legislative perspective, how do we improve the education and curriculum taught in Arizona schools?
Well, I think from a legislative perspective, I think one thing, the curriculum is being reviewed, one of the STEM programs is being reviewed right now and it's the first time it's been reviewed in like 10 years. And I believe that when you have a robust economy and you have teachers that are actually wanting to come to work, and you have excited, no different than our employees, when you have excited employees, I think you're gonna have more engagement. And if I know we have more engagement with the teachers, you have more engagement with the superintendents. And so I think when you have a good economy and you have teachers that are excited to come to work, and you're having certified teachers, you're not using substitute teachers all the time, you're gonna have a consensus working together to actually create a better system in your education system.
Thank you. Mr. Bacchus. What questions have you asked of local school leaders or educators?
What was the question again?
So, what questions have you asked of local school leaders or educators?
I think one of the questions you'd have to ask is, are they getting a good education? Another question asked of school educators are not more towards the school educators, but to the district school boards. How's the money being spent to make sure the kids are getting a good education? And how do they get scorecards? How are the teachers performing? How do the school children come home with a good education? Those are questions I have asked teachers and leaders in the school district.
Would you like to share their responses in your remaining 30 seconds?
I think the typical response is that they're doing the best they can, and they're talking about budget constraints, but I don't think it's a budget constraint at the state level. I think the budget constraint is at the local school district level, which needs to be straightened up, and that's why I think we need more local people involved at this local school district level. We need to change the boards and get more people in there that could better help the school districts to make sure the teachers, the leaders, and the students get what they deserve.
Thank you. Mr. Terry, your next question. How has your experience prepared you to make difficult decisions in elected office?
So, number one question I get, because I look young, is how old are you? I'm 31 years old. while at the same time I've spent almost half of my adult life overseas in the military with stressful situations, much more than this. In Iraq, I spent about 15 months in Iraq doing snatch and grab raids in the middle of the night on high-value targets for my multinational division Baghdad. My recon platoon was working every night. We were kicking down doors, taking out leaders of Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and the Mahdi militia groups that were supported and funded by Iran. So, you know, my experience in performing in stressful situations, I would list that number one.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne, an audience member is asking about the National Popular Vote Compact, or Interstate Compact. What would be your position on that?
Well, I believe that has to do with taking away the electric college, and the fact that I believe in that. I believe that the national popular vote will end up taking, if that had been an occurrence, we would have had Hillary Clinton as the president, because it would have been based more on some of the cities that are so large that in Arizona we would not have had our voice, and that was with, I can still not say it, the electric college. Anyway.
Electoral.
So, thank you.
Electoral.
Oh, there we go, electoral college. So I know what I'm talking about, I just can't say it. So anyway, I believe that's what it's been about, because I haven't been watching that. That has not been something on my radar, but I believe that that's what this whole discussion is about. We don't want it.
Thank you.
I can tell you that.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, your question is, how should your constituents hold you accountable?
Ultimately, it's whether they vote for me or not. And so, you know, I think there was a question asked earlier about how do you communicate with your constituents, and if you're not doing a good job, I would suspect they wouldn't send you back. So in my case, I've been sent 3 times, so I'm hoping that enough constituents feel I'm doing a good job and representing them well, and that they'll send me back one more time.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn, how do we prepare Arizona's water supply for the future?
Thank you for that question. One of the things we're going to start next week is the drought contingency plan discussions with the governor's office and Central Arizona Project. That there's the Bureau of Reclamation is going to have outlining some of the debate, and they're going to have a steering committee working on that with all the stakeholders. And so getting engaged on the drought contingency plan, figuring out what we can do to be able to have agriculture and the cities and towns and growth. We can do that as we outline conservation, and we make sure that we have everybody engaged and we communicate, because it's going to take all of us to get to the future. But we have enough water, but we have to treat it like we're in a drought. We can't treat it like it's somebody else's problem. I'm just going to go buy the water and move it off the rivers. I think we need to make sure that we're all engaged and we're all have a shared solution in this drought contingency plan with the DC Plus, so we can engage with California and Mexico is going to be the first step.
Thank you. Mr. Bacchus, an audience member would like to know, what will be your plan to ensure constituents are always represented, all constituents of LD 13?
Well, my office would always be open to every constituent. I still like the MPV vote and water vote question, but anyway, I will represent all constituents in LD 13, but I tell you right now, the 4 left-wing people in the district, you know, they're gonna hate me, but you know what, I'll still fight for them. They got an issue with a department of the state government, I will fight for them. But you know what, they're not gonna vote for me, but that's fine, I will fight for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Terry, your next question. So, would you support the consolidation of school districts in our state? And if so, how would you facilitate it?
Absolutely. We have way too many school districts here in Arizona. There are some districts just in our legislative district that only have one school and less than 100 students. That makes no sense. It's time we start electing people in government who are going to make common sense decisions. As far as how to make that happen, that's going to take a lot of political capital. Obviously, bipartisanship doesn't seem to be on the forefront, but we will try. But the main thing is we have to reduce the amount of districts, and each of those districts have their own administrative costs, and those need to be looked at as well.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne, your next question. How will you balance the needs of agriculture with the hoped-for growth in population in Arizona?
Well, some people in here may not realize that the Yuma ag farmers hold some of the oldest water rights in our state. And it is going to be a balance, because if our Lake Mead falls below 1075, and we're really at the cusp, we're like at 1078 when I was down there a few weeks ago, and there will start to become a structural imbalance, and there will be items that come into play that are going to hurt the farmers. And it's going to be, if it continues until 2022, as they're expecting, it's going to then affect the cities. And so it's going to take collaborations. It's going to take every voice at the table to discuss this. But it's also going to take multiple states, and that's what that drought contingency plan is. A lot of people don't realize we are the most efficient with water in Arizona. Do you know that?
Thank you.
50,000.
Thank you. Nice try. Mr. Mitchell, what is your position on funding the Maricopa County or the Maricopa Community College District?
Oh, that's an easy one. So the Maricopa County Community College District is county funded. It's a county community college system. It has no state funding. We don't fund it. I don't support funding it. When the recession hit, and since I've been in office 6 years ago, we cut what little funding we did give it, and it's thriving. The community college system has been thriving. They have their own tax base. It's not a state-based college where state revenues, where your tax dollars should be spent on that. You're already being taxed at the county level once. And some of the members, actually one of the members who happens to be the current Speaker of the House, told me a couple years ago when he asked me to fund it, and I said, why? Giving him the argument I just gave you, and he said, just to show that we love them. And that's not what we should be doing. So the community colleges are thriving. They play an important role in our communities. They're doing a great job. They're interacting with the state universities in a very good way in which they allow their credits to be transferred, but I don't believe we should be funding them out of the state revenue fund.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn, what is your position on the Arizona law that allows the state to impose sanctions on employers who hire unauthorized and illegal immigrant workers?
Well, that's the law of the land, and so we have to, we have to do E-Verify, we E-Verify all of our employees. Yuma has 15,000 legal immigrants that come across every day, and some of my employees come across every day, so we use that process. So it's something, when they passed 1070, there was a lot of flack over that, but it's one of the, the microscope is on Arizona, and we have to comply. Yuma is one of the most secure areas it's the only secure area of the border that is deemed population secure by the Border Patrol. And so if we have to comply on the border and we're under a microscope and we have to have those employees and we have to get checked, why shouldn't every other business in Arizona? I think that's what our citizens expect, and that's what we should do.
Thank you. Before I ask Mr. Bacchus, last call for audience-directed questions. If you have an audience-directed question to one of the candidates, please raise your hand with your card at this point in time. Thank you, Mr. Bacchus. So your question is based on the Supreme Court ruling that online transactions can be taxed. What do you think Arizona should do for exemptions for smaller businesses?
I think the smaller businesses should be exempt. I don't support taxes for internet purchases. Matter of fact, I do a lot of purchasing on the internet myself. So I like to keep the internet free. I like to keep the taxes free from purchasing items off the internet. I think the Arizona needs to exempt of small businesses on that, because small businesses are our biggest employers here in Arizona. So let's not pick on them. Let's exempt them.
Thank you. Mr. Terry.
Yes.
I had to find a question, sir.
Pick a good one.
So what is your position on reducing or eliminating ESAs and voucher programs? The ESA is the Empowerment Scholarship accounts. So what's your position on those?
I strongly support ESAs. I strongly support school choice. As I said previously, our charter schools are ranked as some of the best in the entire country. That is a model we should expand upon. As I mentioned before, more competition breeds higher quality and lower cost. I support ESAs, I support vouchers. The money needs to follow the students. It shouldn't be caught up in the local school district bureaucracies where it gets mismanaged and overspent. If we want the best education for our student, the parents should have the opportunity to send their kid to whatever school they feel best fits their kid. I am a strong supporter of parental authority on education and will continue to support ESAs and school choice.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne, what is your position on funding in-state tuition for DACA students?
Funding in-state tuition for DACA students. I don't think that's legal. And I would believe that they need to find their own funding. So that's something I would have to learn more about, but quite frankly, if they're a DACA student, why would we be paying for their education? So sorry I can't elaborate to whoever asked me that question.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, what is your position on GMO and other food labelings as it relates to the state?
Oh, it's interesting. So this is one that should have been for you, Tim, as a farmer. So what my understanding of this is that we've been ahead of the curve for years in a voluntary program, haven't we not, I believe? And that level of standard is now being nationalized, but we've already been doing it in Arizona in our agriculture community. There is some misleading things with GMOs, though. I think that consumers are sometimes misunderstand what that means. But as far as I know, from my friends in Yuma, that we've been way ahead of the curve and kind of led on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whoever said that.
Mr. Dunn, your next question. Name a Democrat in the legislature that you admire and why.
Well, there's probably several people that we worked with and learned that met this last year, but probably I have to go to one of my hometown persons, is Lisa Otondo. She's a senator that is from Yuma, and she's been stalwart for water. They own farmland out in Welton Mohawk Irrigation District, and so she's been an advocate for water and for reaching across the aisle this whole session, and so I think I would say her.
Thank you. Mr. Backus, one of the audience would like you to answer the National Popular Vote Compact question.
Woohoo! Come on, LA's population in on itself could elect the president all on its own with the national popular vote. LA's bigger than about 35 states. This is a hot button for me. It's going to try and get on the ballot for the voters here in Arizona, and you have to vote no. You don't throw the Constitution under the bus. You know what? There's legislators here that got a campaign manager CQ. Some of the campaign managers, I mean, some of the candidates should get rid of him. My opponent, who's not here tonight, should fire her campaign manager because he gets paid by the national popular vote. This the Constitution. It's this book, for crying out loud. Let's not throw it under the bus. Did I get my point across?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this will be our final round, and then we'll be going to closing statements. Mr. Terry, your question. So you mentioned having children reporting children by parents. So can you elaborate on what you were talking about there, and also include you would want the government to play what kind of role? I think this is going back to the children with issues and gun safety and school safety, et cetera.
Well, I can talk about the Second Amendment more. I completely oppose gun control. I believe gun control is hitting what you're aiming at. But as far as what type of role the government plays in
So-
getting involved,
So let
don't
me
s-
rephrase it. Let me
yeah,
rephrase it.
I'm
So you support reporting children by parents, so children that might be troubled or challenged or risk.
Yeah, there are legal ways to do that currently. That
Okay,
doesn't
and so
require
can
any
you
further legislation.
can you elaborate on that? And what kind of role would you want the government to play,
None.
if any?
None, if possible. There's, well, other than the current system that's in place, there's, we have a judicial system. Use it.
Okay.
It's again, the phrasing of the question is, I wouldn't say ideal.
All right. Fair enough. Ms. Osborne, what's your position on legislation that it would improve food and water quality with reductions in contaminants and pesticide residues?
Well, first of all, I might ask my daughter, who was an FFA student and was our agriculture state officer. But actually, I want healthy people, and I think that the government's job, first and foremost, is to make sure people are safe. And so, if that means we always need to be watching, about our crops and everything that has been grown, we need to monitor it. However, we have extremely talented, smart farmers in our state. And there's a balance that government shouldn't get into, but it's a monitoring of making sure we're not getting sick, right? So there is a role that we have to play. That's all there is to it. But there are things that are out of control. You see what just happened with Yuma and their lettuce.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, so an audience member would like to know, you say you defend rights and of the individual citizens, yet there were two bills, one of them being HB 2244, that made it more difficult for citizens to get initiatives on the ballot. Can you elaborate on your position and your thinking around citizens' initiatives?
Yeah, well, actually, I don't remember the wording of that, so can you prompt me out of the 600 bills that I voted on? I'm not sure what all the wording was on that bill.
So HB 2244 is the one
No,
that they're
I
talking
heard
about.
that, but I can't remember what all of the wording was on it that made it more difficult. But generally, I do think that citizens' initiatives make it very problematic for us to represent you. So if you're able to get most of these out-of-state initiatives, they come in and they pay people to get signatures, they put it on the ballot, and they get a turnout for something that maybe they wouldn't have normally gotten if it was just a homegrown initiative. And what happens is it becomes protected, constitutionally protected, and we can never change it. So one of the things that we've talked about doing in the future is that even on all of our bills, which can be changed next year, if we pass a bill, the next legislature can change it, is that putting a sunset review on those initiatives, maybe 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is, so that the public has a second chance to look at it. More people are moving into the state, the electorate changes, and maybe their mind would change as well. But one of the things that happens is we get unfunded mandates. So initiative may pass, we have no way of funding it, we can't get rid of it.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn, your last question for this phase. What steps do you think you could take legislatively to help combat the ongoing opioid epidemic? The opioid epidemic. What can be done legislatively to help combat the opioid epidemic? It's catching, Ms. Osborne.
Well, you know, there was a whole week special session that was at the beginning of this discussion for opioids that was discussed and a big step forward. So I think as that rolls out and comes into law in August, I still think you need to focus on making sure you fund those programs that were, you know, in a limited budget, but you have to make sure you're funding those programs that were put in place this year, and that you keep raising the awareness and get the opioids off the streets, as far as, you know, keeping them out of the hands of the people that are abusing them. So I think the first step that we did this last year, before I got there, was it took a big step forward, and it just got to get implemented. It's going to go into effect this August, and so I think that's, you know, the legislature's already done a major step.
Thank you. And Mr. Backus, your final question. What is your position on increasing educational and vocational training in Arizona's prison to reduce recidivism?
In prison, I mean, they get an education now in prison. I think the outreach, what we have currently now, is working, and I don't think there's any need to support it any further.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this point in time, we will go to our closing statements. Mr. Terry, you will start us with your 1-minute closing statement.
Yes, again, thank you everyone for coming out here. I know this is the most exciting way you could ever imagine spending a Friday night. So I just want to reiterate, we didn't get a chance too much tonight to get into contrast, but you do have a choice. LD 13 is one of the most Republican districts in the entire state. We are going to get a Republican to represent you. The big question is, what type of Republican? Are you going to get one that's might raise your taxes or, you know, grow the size of government? Or do you want conservatives that will keep regulatory burdens at a minimum? That is a huge choice. I'm proud to be endorsed by about 16 members of the current legislature, all conservatives. I have support from around the state. I'm able to get stuff done right away. I would direct you to my website. It's treyterry.com. Fairly simple. And again, like I said, if you leave here without my cell phone number, that's your fault. Come see me. I will get it to you.
Thank you. Ms. Osborne, your closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you again this evening for being here. So my grandfather gave his life for our freedoms. He was a fighter pilot in World War II. And I think as someone that has grown up knowing that, I have always stood up and taken responsibility for a job that needs to be done. Leaders recognize where there's jobs that need to be done. I step up, I show up, and I get to work. And I'm a hard worker. I don't know any different, and I work hard for you. But quite frankly, honestly, I have the most experience to do this job. I have wisdom, I have knowledge, and I have experience. From being a small business owner, from being a mother, from being on a hospital board, from being on a water board, for being watching over homelessness, for being part of our education system, for mentoring 300 teenagers. I've always been there to make a difference, and I will do it for you. And it doesn't matter the fact that we are in an extremely diverse,
Thank you.
loving district.
Mr. Mitchell, your closing statement.
Great. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. I have 6 years. I think most of you probably know my record. I've been rated #1. I think I'm the only person, I know I'm the only person on this panel, but probably the only one in the legislature that's been rated #1 by the Goldwater Institute, #1 by Americans for Prosperity, #1 by so many other groups that I can't think of at the time. But at any rate, and I've served as chairman of Ways and Means, vice chairman of Ag and Water, vice chairman of Public Safety, And I think I've done a good job in those things. But the thing that I really want to do in my last term is run for speaker, and that's what I'm doing. I think I already have the votes lined up. And what that means for LD 13 is if I'm successful and you send me back, we're going to be choosing all the chairmen, we're going to be setting the agenda, we're going to be running our budget, and we're going to be making decisions that are important to you and your priorities. It gives you a voice that's much more amplified than it does having me represent you right now, because as speaker, I can do so much more. So I would ask that you take that into consideration when voting and support me
Thank
for
you.
one more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn?
Thanks again for coming out tonight. We appreciate you being here to engage and discuss issues. Again, I'm a doer, not a talker. I get up every morning, go to work long hours, and so I'm used to getting things done. And I think one of the things that we didn't talk too much about was that our district has 3 bases in it: Marine Corps Air Station, Yuma Proving Ground, and Luke Air Force Base. And I've grown up understanding that you have to protect those bases at all costs as we develop long-term generational plans. And so I hit the ground running, understanding what is important to our district. I understand business, and I want your vote, and I want to support you. I think I've hit the ground running in the legislature the last 100 days, interacting with people, and I think as we have a pro-business, limited government, and with our conservative values, I'm your guy. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Bacchus?
Thanks for showing up this evening. I'm on a third chance to swear to this good book that's in my hand. I've done it twice. LD 13 is without an elected state senator. There's going to be options. Right now, there's a possibility we have a disgraced lawmaker, myself, and we have a seated state senator who got her seat through the political cronyism process, and whose campaign manager gets paid for the NPV. So you're going to have some choices, but I think I am the only choice. I'm also working for the 10th Amendment Center. I have legislative experience. I will fight for you. And how I fight for you is because next week the Supreme Court's going to make their decision on Don Shooter. And where does he live? Brent lives here in Waddell, and I'm here to support you. Thank you.
Thank you. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating in our forum this evening. And to our audience members, we thank all of you who took the time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov/voter dashboard for a customized experience to find information on the primary election, the candidates, the issues, and to view this debate on demand. Please fill out the debate evaluation form and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the commission and will help us improve future debates. You are welcome to stay after and speak directly with the candidates, so thank you for coming tonight and have a good evening.